Hi, I'm Catriona Yvonne, and welcome to the live virtual show. And today's guest is Norma Maupins. She is a cherished community free speech producer that we need to see in the studio once we can all get back in the studio. She does wonderful work, and we miss her here. And she's been away becoming a minister, and she's going to fill us in on what she's been doing since for the over the last couple of months and over the past year, um, why she wasn't at Brick, bringing us wonderful content. So, welcome to the show, and you look fabulous, and I'm glad that you were able to be on with me today. And I want to welcome you. And like I said, and she also had a birthday on July 31st. I mean, I'm sorry, July 1st. My birthday is tomorrow. So she's the beginning and I'm the end. And so fill us in, Norma, and tell us about yourself and what you've been experiencing over the last couple of months and how it was going from producing, taking a hiatus, and even though you're still involved in your church as far as film, and just give us an update.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you so much, Catriona, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. Uh, my life has been, I guess, similar to many people right now, where things has just been kind of turned upside down with COVID-19 and just trying to handle that and the loss. Recently, just lost a 21-year-old niece. To COVID-19. So, just dispelling the myths that this virus is geared towards older people.
Mm-hmm.
People are dying, old people are dying. It's just devastating many families. So getting back into just trying to focus on dissertation work, just, continuing to do my ministry work. I love ministry. I love working with young people. Just go ahead, ask me a few questions, and I'll.
No, I want to listen. I want to. It's been a minute. I want to know, like what you're focused on, how you've been coping, um, if you plan to do any future productions, just where you're headed.
Okay, great. In terms of productions, yes, I am absolutely planning on doing more productions, and actually have a meeting shortly to talk about um, creating either a S corp or an LLC for my production stuff that can come under that. Really looking forward to diving into that because I want to gear part of what I do to help young people, um, you know, identify their gifts and be able to, look at ways to express themselves through different forms of media, either writing or production, film, doing shorts and things like that. So I'm very interested in doing that as we move forward. You know that when I started at Brick, I oftentimes would produce my shows under Joy on the Inside Productions. And so it's geared to, creating joy in the family and the community, outreaching those who are disadvantaged, who may not have access to production equipment. And so, I'm really looking forward to um, getting that off the ground and just working with some young people and also to help young people. Sometimes we carry so much baggage around with us as we go through life, and, different traumas in our life affect us even from young age. And I just remember having to go through a process of healing from traumas that I experienced as a young person that I carried into my adulthood. So, part of Joy on the Inside is geared to help young people identify their traumas at a young age so that they don't have to wait until they're 40 or 50 years old to start dealing with their different aspects of trauma that they may have experienced growing up,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can get on a course of success, earlier on in life, and that they don't have to wait, until they're later on in years to start to deal with their traumas. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Still doing ministry. I'm working on my dissertation. Dissertation is also around helping young people identify traumas, and helping them identify what type of spiritual walk they want to walk. How, if being in a building is not what they want to do, then what is it that you hear God saying to you, so that you can begin to identify what that is and how to walk that life and live a life of a life of faith, and what that looks like for them as they, navigate society and community and work, and, all of those things that create the person that they want to be.
Okay. So tell me, at what age or when did you get the calling to go into ministry, and how did that feel?
Um, I was called into ministry at a very young age. I was 14, when I first started working with youth and doing ministry and youth ministry. I went through that at a very young age. Um, and it was a strong calling on my life. And it was at that point that I realized that the church needed to address issues of how they dealt with young people in church, because a lot of times as young people, you go to church, and as you become adults, you find that there are church hurts that happen along the path. And so that's been my inspiration, dealing with what is church hurt for a young person. How older older people in ministry may have talked to them or talked down to them, or there's all kinds of things that may have happened within the church that have turned young people off from the church, and why they choose not to participate. So I'm looking at that from a dissertational perspective, a doctoral perspective, so that I can maybe give some insight or help some young people going back to finding their path. What is your path and how do you get there? And identifying those roadblocks that may have come up in your life that may be hindering you, or, keeping you from doing the things that you feel are important in your life, or you may not even have identified those things yet, but just being able to identify, the blockages that come up in our lives as we move and navigate through community, as we move and navigate through, relationships. How do we deal with relationships if we don't deal with the inner person first,
Right.
the hurts and the damages that have been done as we have grown and moved through life. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm certainly glad that at 14 you were able to be in the church and get that calling, because truly we know that you are gifted and that you have a calling. And I know it's some people that are called, and then some people that just show up, and it is a difference. And I think it's something that you have to be called for, divinely, or it's just not the same. So from all the things that you discussed, they sound wonderful. And I know that earlier in the movement, just going to take it in another direction, you and your daughter were going to the protests. And can you tell me about that experience as a intergenerational aspect, as far as, being in protests or being a part of a community with your daughter? How was that experience? And how do you think your views and your daughter's life are similar, as far as the things that you have gone through in the world, versus, how her outlook on what's going on now. Is it similar? Is it, a little different? Tell us about that.
So those are a couple of few things, a couple of questions in that what you have just asked. So what I think for me, going, let me just, sometimes I'm going to go back a little bit, because oftentimes we're called, and even though we call and we know that we're called, we don't actually answer that call right away. And so what I found is that I had to go through some things in my life before I could even address the call that I was being called to, the ministry that I was being called to. Part of my ministry have always been to work with young people. And so even in my walk, even though I didn't actually become a minister until later on in life, my ministry have always been to work with young people. And so that has been important for me. My daughter, the protest, I mean, I have to admit, in this COVID environment, the protests, it could be very scary when you're in that group of people, in that large crowd at my age, when you hear the statistics of individuals being in a certain age category that, that's my dog.
Hey.
Of course, my bell is ringing at this time. So,
oh goodness, you got a lot going on.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to do that. So
okay.
Okay. Give me a second.
I'll just talk.
All right.
So, like I said, so Norma's going to answer her door, and she's going to come back with us. And I just want to take a moment to say that in this time, that this time of protests and uncertainty, to just stay focused and know that everything, I hate to say everything happens for a reason, but it does. And that just know, in order to get to where we're trying to go, we must go through what we're going through. And it will take some time, but it will be better. And it's a glorious, and look forward and be hopeful of a future that is what should have been already. So I think that helps me cope a little bit better, because to know that things will be better. And I feel that in my heart, and I know it's the truth. So, okay. So I just wanted to share that. And now we have Norma back. Okay, Star, how are you?
Great.
Was it Publishers Clearinghouse?
I wish. No.
Yeah.
It was Whole Foods, and I had to have some food delivered.
Okay. All right.
So getting back to the question of protest, I think that having a voice in a community was and is very important, and sometimes the risk, the importance of the protest outweighs the risk of the protest. And so it's like, today was, celebrating the life of John Roberts Lewis. So yeah, mm-hmm. So we're celebrating his life, and the stories of him, being, abused, physically abused, and he's like, sometimes we got to get into good trouble in order to make a change. And so it's important that we have a voice, especially in this time, especially so that the young people can see that their voices matter, that they can impact society, they can impact this nation when they stand up and have a voice. And so it was very important for me to share that experience with my daughter, and to be out there. And you know, we had on our protective gear, and most of the people we were around, you know, you were protected, and they wore their protective PPEs and things like that. So, and it was a peaceful protest,
Mm-hmm.
and it was empowering because you know that you're part of history. And you know, in the 60s, I was too young to be a part of that history, but you know, to know that, you know, my voice is being heard, even if it's a small voice in the massive,
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of the larger voices, that we all have a role to play, and we can all participate on some level. And if you can't protest, if you can't physically get out and protest, there's still so many ways that you can impact, and you can have an impact. Just like we're here today and having a conversation, you know, we're having an impact. And so,
Right.
you know, there are all types of ways now where people can effect change, right?
Right.
So, you know,
Right.
and being in the streets is one way. Being an educator is one way. Being a minister is another way. And so that we all have a role to play, and we all have to stand up and do our part,
Right.
especially against a time where the overt racism is so prevalent in our society. You know, the systemic racism, yes, but the ugly head of the dragon has risen its head in our society, and we have to have a voice against that. So
And
that's one thing, you know, just being able to participate with my daughter. And I just recall her saying, you know, this is a scary time. She's more concerned about me because I'm, you know, I'm the older person. She's like, I just don't want you to be sick, you know. It's like, you know, but we have to be in a place where we have our voices. And I have this as, you know, we're doing everything that we can to protect ourselves while we have our voices, you know.
mm-hmm.
And so I feel like as long as we are doing what we can to protect
Right.
ourselves, you know, we still have to stand up and have a voice. And
Right.
that's important for me to be able to share that moment with her. You
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, I'm glad you was able to do that. And well, I mean, it would be nice not to have to do that, but you know, to be able to do it together, maybe for her children, you know, that we can end this thing that we've been doing all our lives called marching for change,
Yeah.
that we get some portions of, that we can finally receive what the totality of what we're due. And so I love that you were able to share that experience. And I think you put it perfectly, because I agree with you. And at this time, how it's like everyone has to do their part. And for some people, that's going to mean marching. And for some other people, that's going to mean just sharing a word to someone in the street, keeping them encouraged and lifting them up, or, you know, sharing knowledge. But we all have a part, you know, even if we never go outside, even if we never, you know, march. It's every individual, we all have to have a stand and a part of getting the equality and justice for all, finally.
Right.
And so I like the way that you described it, because that's totally the way it has to be. And so I just want to say, what else? What else? Let's see. Is there anything else that? Okay, we have the, and then you're in insurance. So are you still actively? Tell us about what you see going on in that industry
In the real
right
estate
now.
industry.
Yes.
Um, Well, you know, it was everything shut down in March. You know, our offices shut down. You know, the way we did closings were very different. Closings
Mm-hmm.
were still happening, and I think a lot of sellers, you know, became very nervous as we the you know. Uh, the death tolls and the coronaviruses, begin to rise, I didn't lose clients, but I've had clients that have said, let's just hold off for a minute. Let's just wait and see what happens. Later on in the year, maybe we can put properties back on the market. So you've had those situations where, people are still living in their homes, and, they did not want to take chances of having, strangers coming in their personal environment and possibly infecting their environment. So we've had some of that. And then on the other side, we've had people who continue to look and to buy. It did slow down. It has slowed down. It slowed down considerably in the beginning. It is starting to pick up now. People weren't moving into New York is like a mega hub. So people are always moving into the city, taking on jobs in New York. And so because everything shut down and because companies, were doing a lot of distant working from home, they weren't in the building. So some of that hiring slowed down. And when that slowed down, it had a trickle down effect on, the number of people coming into the city, especially during March and April and May when we were at the height of the virus. So, people didn't want to come into New York. They weren't looking at apartments and things like that to move in New York. And so things slowed down, but it is starting to pick up. The industry is starting to pick up pretty quickly. That's one thing about being in New York that, it bounces back.
So do you see the prices being lowered, or, what's the trend for the market right now?
Well, right now, I think the real estate market, we've seen some trends in the rental markets. Those properties have, it's a good time to rent, I should say that, in New York.
Okay.
Properties, the prices on rentals have dropped, to some $200 to $300 in some places. And so it is a good time to rent. There's a lot of inventory for rentals on the market right now. So it's a good time to rent. The buying market, the buyers, it slowed down some. There hasn't been a lot of change. Surprisingly, there has not been a lot of change. You haven't seen a lot of change in terms of the pricing of property going down, but it has stabilized. So it's not fluctuating as much as this time of year. The prices tend to go or it elevates, but you're not seeing so much of that right now. It's kind of stabilized. People who are looking for homes, who need to buy homes, they're out there looking gradually, taking their time to look. They're not what we would say a couple of years ago is, properties would hit the market and it would be gone in a week. That's not happening. So, buyers are being more cautious. They're, taking their time, but it's not having an effect on the pricing just yet.
Okay. Well, yeah, it seemed like it's similar, like when it was 9/11, or, all of a sudden it was more popular to rent. And a lot of people started moving out of New York. And I see that as something that also, I know some people they moved to White Plains, or they moved to, I guess, some parts of Pennsylvania, which is always a trend in New York. For a period of years, you have hipsters, and you're young and you're in college, and then you get married and you start to have a family. And then the trend is always to move out of New York and get more space. And, I think that that's a trend that seems like it's going to continue. And then we still have like we have these buildings that, and we still have our homeless situation. And, you know, when it's all said and done, you know, in the future, when we get away from COVID, to see what is real and what has been accomplished or will be accomplished, I hope that that homelessness situation will be one that has been rectified. And, you know, some of these buildings, or, you know, all these vacant, will be vacant businesses that will never reopen, they can come up with a plan to, you know, help with that problem. So we'll see what happens. But you have anything else to share? So I know you're a busy lady on the go, and I grabbed you up, and I don't want to keep you. So
I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. I am in ministry. I'm at Agape Tabernacle International Fellowship, and we're located in Brooklyn, in the heart of Canarsie, and wonderful ministry there, you know, under the Right Reverend Dr. Barbara E. Austin Lucas. And, you know, we're on Zoom every Sunday at 8 a.m. and at 2 p.m. every Sunday. That's one thing. I want to say also, look out for Joy on the Inside Productions. We are going to be making some moves today, so that we can get back up and running, and, you know, wanting to have an impact on our young people so that, you know, they can be all that they need to be and all that they want to be in this country, you know, and they can be the voices that can be heard, against systemic racism, and just, you know, grow and do everything that they have aspired to do, you know.
mhm. Well, with Joy on the Inside Productions, or LLC, whichever one it turns out to be, and One Woman League Productions here, and you know I got your back. So looking forward to collaborations.
Yes.
And you know, I'm so happy that I had this opportunity to get you live. I mean, because your voice is such an important voice, and you had so many great, insightful things that needed to be said at this moment. So I appreciate you so much. I keep you in prayer, and I look forward to the future, and all that you create. Okay? So have a blessed day, and thank you so much for coming on the Catriona Yvonne Show virtual. Thank you. Peace and love.